Sabrina 70s comic issue 50. The story starts out with someone named Dr. Hopewell visiting Sabrina's house, saying that her father called and asked them to hurry over. Sabrina says that he must mean her uncle. Why doesn't she call cousin Ambrose Uncle Ambrose then? You'd think the writer would have been told that he's cousin Ambrose. But it makes sense to make the wrong assumption. Out of nowhere, because he looks in his mouth, he says he'll have to give him a complete physical and demands him to remove his clothes in Sabrina's house. Were doctors still making house calls in the 70s? Won't they not be able to take some of their medical equipment to a house? I'm suspicious of this guy. Sabrina tells Hilda to make Ambrose some coffee. Hopewell puts multiple pills from a jar into his mouth, telling him to take them without explaining what they are. That seems like bullshit. Is he a liar? Then it gives him a vitamin shot and he screams. Hilda rushes out into the living room and is told that she looks very pale. She's asked to stick her tongue out, and he thinks this is interesting. What is interesting? He says he's gonna give her a vitamin shot too, but she hates needles. Why didn't she abuse her magic and turn him into a duck this time? I guess she's gotten better. It turns out the doctor's getting their names wrong, and he's meant to be in the house across the street. This story's stupid. Hilda uses magic to make the door stuck so that he couldn't get it open, and then teleports a mule to kick him out of the house. And he complains that he didn't even give them a bill yet. What were those pills? I have the feeling he isn't a real doctor. Why is the story ending here instead of telling us how Ambrose got out of this one? Did he cast a spell when he didn't even know what those pills were? It's bad for someone to get a pill that they weren't prescribed. He gave them vitamin shots. Maybe that helped them. He complains that he doesn't know why they're mad, and he didn't even give them a bill yet. So he was going to bill them? Well, he did use up his vitamin shots and pills. Still, wouldn't the pills be in the hands of the patient? Wouldn't they be prescribed at a pharmacy only? This is so unrealistic. How did he get the address wrong? In the next story, Harvey tells Sabrina a scary story where the little men snuck into the Smith's house while they were sleeping and took over their minds. I don't blame him for saying sneaked instead. It's more intuitive. Harvey says they turned them into zombies to be controlled. Sabrina hopes it never happens around here, saying that's awful, except when she does it. Like when she casts love spells on people. Hilda asks how they were controlling minds, and Harvey says the Martians did it with telepathy. Hilda said she didn't read anything like that in the paper, and Harvey says it wasn't in the paper, it was in a sci-fi book. Then Hilda makes fun of him for believing in a made-up story, even though she clearly believed it before he corrected her. And why wouldn't she? We saw aliens in the comic before, and she's a witch. When she read about a UFO, she immediately believed in aliens. Harvey says that it could happen. Witches can control minds, so he's not that far off. In fact, if witches come from another planet, they're aliens too. And any strange beasts we've seen that are associated with witches, they're aliens too. Still, Hilda calls him a gullible clown and asks if he believes in the Tooth Fairy too. Why wouldn't there be a fairy that has a weird teeth collection at this point? There were fairies in the 90s comic. Hilda annoys me by laughing at Harvey for no good reason. Well, I guess she doesn't need a reason to make fun of Harvey. Harvey still believes in people from other planets, and sees some mechanical men being sold, and decides to buy them to play a prank on Hilda. She hears them beeping and opens the back door and they walk in. I couldn't help but smile at her panicked dialogue. Harvey then cheerfully comes clean about it, and Hilda casts a spell to make the mechanical doll say, "Take me to your leader." The story ends with him panicking in the streets, and Sabrina calls Hilda out on it, while Hilda says that nobody will believe him anyways. In the next story, Hilda wakes up yawning, stopping her alarm clock, and says that she dreads Monday mornings now that summer vacation is over. It's an ordeal because she has to wake Sabrina up for school, and she's a deep sleeper. She said she'll have to resort to her usual methods, and cast a spell to send her out of bed. She floats around, telling her to go wash up. She uses magic to brush Sabrina's teeth for her and dry her head with a towel. And then she uses magic to get her dressed while hoping that she approves of her choice of clothes. It's a good thing she's actually related to Sabrina, as she lampshades that Sabrina could sleep through an earthquake. And it's a very good thing she didn't dress her up like a stereotypical witch. She uses magic to make her eat her cereal and finish her milk. It's kinda sweet to see how well she can take care of her. Normally, she's just shown as abusing her powers. But I have to wonder why she didn't just use magic to force her to wake up. Maybe she has fun with this, and figured that doing this is faster because when Sabrina first wakes up, she's too slow moving. She uses magic to wipe off her mouth while she'd get her books, telling her to wipe her mouth when she's the one doing it with magic. She then makes Sabrina walk to school, though somehow she starts out walking in the wrong direction, and she tells her to open her eyes, but she only does so at the end, not that she reacts at all. The story ends with Hilda saying that she's all zapped out and put in a full day, holding a pole looking exhausted and bent over. And I'm just wondering why she doesn't walk her to school, because isn't it obvious Sabrina might get hit by a car? In the next story, Hilda trips on a broom and spills the cookie and tea jars, and asks who put that broom there. Predictably, she did. She blamed Harvey at first. Sabrina tells her she should know what's going on for sure before she starts yelling, and Hilda lampshades that every little thing upsets her. Sabrina gives her a book she had for this exact situation, The Road to Relaxing Restfulness. Oh yeah, you can change your whole personality by just reading a book. Hilda comments that the book was great and insists that nothing's gonna upset her anymore. That's not possible, and it'd be unfair to expect that out of anyone. She bumps into Ambrose and spills milk on his shirt, so he insults her for not watching where she was walking and calls her a muddlehead. Never heard that one before. She surprises him by admitting that he was right. Out of nowhere, a pizza delivery man shows up and hits her with the door, and I wonder why he didn't just ring the doorbell and wait for it to be opened like a normal person. Ambrose lampshades this, asking if he believes in knocking. He says that slows him down when he has a lot to deliver. He asks who ordered a pie, and Hilda's mad at him, and Sabrina reminds her of Serenity, so Hilda reluctantly says that it was all her fault because she apparently had no business being behind the door. I wish I knew why she was behind it in the first place. It turns out nobody ordered a pizza, which explains why he came here with no foreshadowing. He wants someone to take it, and Harvey shows up all of a sudden, and the pizza box gets sent out of his hands, and the pizza lands on Hilda's face. Harvey says that the pizza got here before he did, and Hilda teleports herself to outer space to get some serenity for real, presumably with an air bubble around her to keep her alive. I guess Hilda wouldn't have felt right about drinking a potion to brainwash herself into not having a temper anymore. She'd only feel good about it if she earned it herself by following a book's instructions. But she could do that to make a potion. The first story was about a doctor making a house call and going to Sabrina's house by mistake, so Hilda kicks him out for it with a mule. The most noteworthy part was the pill part, but the whole thing seemed unrealistic. By the way, it was so polite of the doctor not to comment on their framed picture of a vampire. The second story is about Hilda making fun of Harvey for believing that little alien men could take over people's minds. Even the witches could achieve that, and he's seen plenty of strange things. So he pranks her by sending little mechanical men after her that he bought. And when he makes the dumb idea to face her and explain himself, he gets pranked because she uses her magic to make him think they're aliens out to control him. It's a bit annoying that Sabrina reacted as if it was frightening and awful for people's minds to be taken over when she's done the same thing before, and she doesn't angst about how she's no better than them. Then there's a story where Hilda uses magic to get Sabrina ready for school when Sabrina's sleeping. It was kind of creepy, but also sweet because I got to see a whole story showing her taking care of her, like she was a normal loving mother. Her appearance makes that hard to see, but I liked her nightgown and how she wasn't wearing a hat for once. Sabrina didn't have to force herself through getting ready for school while tired and slow the whole time, because Hilda did it all for her. And that was pretty nice of her, because she could have easily just forced her to wake up with magic. The final story is about Hilda reading a book about Serenity so she could stop yelling at every little thing, only for her to get into a series of mishaps and accidents one after the other, which irritates her into warping to space to get away. It'd be nice of her if she didn't take it out on Harvey too. It was weird that in a story about witches, the idea of her making and drinking a potion to become calmer never even came up. Aside from the few times magic were used, this could have been about any characters.